All right. I'm recording. How do you guys like my new moody lighting? I don't want to light myself too brightly because I'm not that good looking, so I like to keep myself in shadow. I got green behind me and red in front. I think that's a good look for me. Got the Christmas colors going. But anyways, I'm rambling and I have things to say because I came across this article on a conservative website the other day, actually. Was it yesterday? And I was just laughing because it is so funny. So I guess um, the Mexico's ruling party here wants to introduce a bill to fine Facebook and Twitter and YouTube for censorship. And in the it was from our conservative, and there was a bunch of people who were just like, "Yes, you're so brave." It's basically just a bill that's being presented, and they still have to vote on it in a couple of weeks or whatever. But so basically, it would allow Mexico to fine all of these social media platforms if they censor certain people who they feel shouldn't be censored. For instance, Twitter banned over 70,000 accounts that were associated with QAnon, which is that conspiracy nonsense. And I don't know, Mexico had a problem with that. I had no idea Mexico really had this kind of bug up their ass over this, but I guess they do. However, I don't think a lot of the users on Reddit really read this very carefully, and it's certainly not a very big article. It's only about 4 paragraphs long, if that. I mean, there's a caveat here that's clearly stated by who nobody actually attached their name to this article. But yeah, the USMAC or MCA has a new revised version of NAFTA, negotiated by Trump, mind you. Mexico is not allowed to take action against internet companies. Right here. I mean, it's stated in the article. So basically, Trump shot this whole thing in the foot. I have no idea why they're trying to go through with this, even though there is there's a clause in the NAFTA contract that states that there's nothing Mexico can do. So it's basically a big circle jerk. But I thought it was funny, even if this wasn't a thing, even if Mexico could impose these fines on these social media companies, what do you think the social media companies would do? Do you think they'd just be like, oh no, Mexico's fining us? Do you think if Google got a fine from Mexico because they tried to fine them for, deplatforming somebody, that Google would be like, oh no, you better pay it? Google would be like, nah, let's just buy Mexico. We own Mexico now. Let's just buy it. Yeah, we own Mexico now, please. This is so stupid. And the reason I'm talking about this silly ass article is it ties into something that I want to talk about. It's kind of a follow-up to something that I posted a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was right after the election. So it was a few months ago now. And I made a video called Freedom of Speech for Me, but not for thee. And in that video, I was responding to people who were, admittedly still smarting from the fact that Trump lost the election. And I was seeing a lot of posts on my social media pages about if you voted for Joe Biden, I don't want to hear you X, Y, and Z. They were making these declarative statements about not wanting to hear anybody else's opinions on anything else and so on and so forth. And they're listing a bunch of things. And I made that video not so much to rag on Trump, and I did rag on Trump, but the point wasn't to rag on Trump. It was to make a point that I wasn't going to be shut up by any of the chuckle fucks on any of my social media pages. Regardless of how butthurt or wounded you were that your guy didn't win, I'll say whatever the fuck I want. And that was the point I was making. And quite rightly, a lot of other people decided to chime in and say what they thought, and that was perfectly cool. But the point was raised that, if I'm in favor of all this freedom of speech, and I am, am I, obviously I would be against all of this social media deplatforming and censorship coming from, the Silicon Valley people. And whether I'm for it or against it is frankly irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's a different topic because those are private companies. They're private corporations that have leaders who are calling the shots. Those are not public utilities. As much as people seem to think that Google, who owns YouTube, and Twitter and Facebook, how freely people go on and interact and use it and post things and use it for all various things, they seem to forget the fact that those are still privately owned companies, and you can be booted off easily for violating the TOS or doing something that falls outside of whoever the powers that be are there. If you piss them off, you can go. For instance, I had a little run-in with Instagram. I think it was last year. May have posted a picture that had a little bit too much something down there. And I got it removed, and I got a warning saying too much nudity, dude. And I'm like, really? Have you seen Instagram? Like, what? This was tame. But I digress. I'm not going to get into that. But I'm just saying, it can happen. It can happen. Hate speech, nudity, copyright infringement, propagating misinformation. Even that is allowed a lot of times. It might be flagged, but that's even allowed. I would say they're pretty lenient on people for the things that they say and the ideas that they propagate. They don't have to be. Now, they do go after public figures. And let's be honest. I mean, people were talking about Donald Trump getting his Twitter banned permanently. But, the powers that be at Twitter felt like he incited a mob, which, love him or hate him, I think he kind of did that. But okay, that's going to give me some shit. But you see the distinction is these platforms could definitely shut me up if I start saying things that they don't like. If I get on their radar, which I'm not likely to do, they could absolutely just pull the plug because they're a private company. I could appeal and go through the process of trying to get things reinstated and plead my case or whatever. But if they don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. They're a private company who has every right to dump me. Now, you can make the argument that they should be a public utility. Maybe they should be. Maybe we should start paying taxes towards these platforms in order for the public to decide how it's run. I don't know how we would go about doing that, or who would be in charge, or what kind of regulatory committee would, make the decisions, but that's another argument too. These things are not cut and dry. It's not either all okay or none of it's okay, okay? There are too many people using these platforms for it to just be black and white. It can't be binary, all right? There's gray area that we all venture into and venture out of. Sometimes you venture too far in, you get fucked. You get bent over a barrel and fucked, and sometimes you have no recourse. So, that's that was something that kind of got conflated with my earlier video, and I felt like, no, that's not what I'm saying, but I get the point. I get what people were saying, and this particular article here led me to come back full circle and state it outright. Like, here is why I was saying the freedom of speech for me, but not for thee, applies to all of us chuckle fucks on the internet. It does not apply to the powers that control the social media puppets, we're like we are users of a private platform. As much as we see it as a public good, these are private platforms, in a weird way, we actually do pay for these platforms and websites by freely providing our personal data and information, so that's almost ironic, but again, another topic. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening if you did. Cheers.
Dirty, filthy, mucky.